You're listening to Stimulus Tech Talk, a conversation-based podcast created by Stimulus Technologies that covers a range of topics related to business and technology.
Welcome to Stimulus Tech Talk. I am Sherry Lip, the marketing manager at Stimulus Technologies, and I'm here today with Nathan Whittacre, the CEO of Stimulus Technologies, and we are going to be talking about internet access at job sites, kind of how it pertains to construction and engineering and stuff, but some of these topics could probably apply elsewhere. Welcome, Nathan.
Thanks, Sherry. It's good to be here as always, and thanks for everybody for joining us today.
How do we define, this topic when it comes to job site internet access?
Well, I'll start with a story that takes me way back. So one of my first jobs, I helped my sister out for a while with fire stopping, which is it's putting specific insulation around pipes in buildings that would stop fires and smoke from going from room to room inside the construction buildings. And so I did that first summer just to earn some money when I was a teenager, and I learned a little bit about construction sites. Now, this was in the mid 90s. And at that time, job sites were just starting to get computers in them. And there was a great project manager. He was helping build the MGM Grand's addition. There was like the theme park and convention center and all that stuff that was going into the MGM Grand here in Las Vegas. And he wanted to have the AutoCAD drawings and connectivity to their office in his job site. And he knew I was a little techie, and so he asked me to help him out during the day to see if they could figure out how to make this work. And it was really difficult because job sites are often temporary trailers that the project managers and the construction crew and the construction managers will work out of, for maybe 6 months, 12 months, 2-3 years, depending on the size of the project. In town, it's a little easier, but to get internet connectivity to them. But a lot of these locations are, greenfield builds, so they're out in locations that don't have any utilities ran to them yet. So it's really quite difficult to get dedicated internet service to these locations, especially our traditional wired internet service like fiber optic or cable modem that we would traditionally install in businesses. Having high-speed internet connectivity to these locations is difficult. So I learned that very early on. He wanted multiple T1 lines installed in this job site trailer, and we talked to the telephone company at the time, and they said there's just no way, even in the middle, right next to MGM Grand on the Las Vegas Strip, they weren't going to run these telecommunication lines into a temporary trailer just for a year. No company would do it. So we had to figure out a way to get them access and connectivity for high-speed, downloads of, AutoCAD files and these large files. And so, it's a continued problem even today in the world with mobile phones and, a lot of higher speed connectivity. The data requirements have increased even more. So when we talk about job site trailers, we're talking about, locations that generally are, on a dirt lot somewhere either in the city or outside of the city. And, the construction crews working out of that temporary office for a short period of time.
So what kind of things maybe don't people think of when it comes to this? So even if the job site is like right next to something, is it automatically going to have good internet access?
It's highly unlikely. A part of even setting up the job trailer is they have to bring in utilities. And oftentimes the only utility that they bring in is power. Again, telecommunication companies don't want to run temporary cable or fiber optic lines, especially because the job site trailers often move around on location. So A job trailer may start off in one location, but when they start excavating a second part of the job, they have to move the trailers, several times during the job. And so moving telecommunication lines, especially fiber optic lines, are very expensive and next to impossible to maintain that connectivity. So you might get power to these locations, even if it's in the middle of the city, but you're probably not going to get anything beyond that.
When we're setting up, this might be getting a little ahead, but when we're setting this up for a job site, is that going to be completely separate than what's there when the building's complete, or does that lay any framework for it?
It's usually completely separate. It is a temporary access for that job site trailer, and it's not something that is, going to be there post construction. So part of the construction of a new building is to bring in underground cabling, power, sewer, water, and telecommunications cabling. And all that is the permanent design that's going to the building. So anything that they bring in to the job site trailer is usually taken down prior to completing the job. And so again, temporary, it's something that, might be 6 months, might be 12 months, might be several years, but it is temporary and will be removed post completion of the job.
What are the biggest challenges we face when we're getting the temporary internet access in?
One of the things that a lot of people nowadays think, well, maybe a 5G connection, a mobile hotspot, maybe even satellite internet is sufficient for these job site trailers. And it is potentially the case. But what we found is a lot of the job sites, especially for like a 5G internet connection, a lot of the job sites aren't in areas where they would even have cellular coverage. And so we find a lot of these locations are missing cellular coverage. And so there's not even the option for 5G. Even if they do, job trailers often need large files either downloaded or uploaded. And a lot of cellular providers have maximum caps on how much data you can transmit going back and forth. And so the difficulty is not just the connection, but the amount of throughput that you're running through the connection. So 5G may work for small jobs, but is not sufficient for a large job where they're transmitting a lot of files, they're doing a lot of video conferences, communicating back and forth to the office. And they might need VPN access back to their main office to get access to their data. And so a lot of VPN connections don't work well over 5G or satellite internet. And so that becomes a bit of an issue for these locations as, the normal connectivity that they would want if they were in their corporate office or their main construction office just doesn't work in these job site trailers. And so, our traditional, idea of running a hotspot or running a like a Starlink satellite connection just doesn't work effectively.
So how might this poor connection impact a project? Because obviously they were doing construction long before internet. So what's so different about it? Are people physically having to go around to different meetings and get people to come out? What's changed?
Well, what's changed is back in 1994, 95, when I was doing this work, is we would go to the blueprint shop, have printed blueprints, and take those on the site. And they were working off of, physical copies of blueprints. And often, those blueprints were generated daily or even weekly, maybe monthly for the large sets. And so they were operating off of paper. And now the idea is operating more and more off of digital copies. And so that's really changed a lot, the way that job sites are ran, because these AutoCAD drawings, they can be updated by the engineers in the office, sent to the job sites very easily, and it's much more efficient.
So what might be the the hidden cost of not having reliable internet connectivity?
Well, the hidden cost is that they have to drive back to the office. There's not as effective communication with their main office as there would be if there was good internet access. So they may have to go to their office to download the latest AutoCAD files from their office, have those available. It's just not as efficient for these construction companies and construction crews to not have that immediate access to their teams, whether it's engineers or the construction managers or other people in the office that are doing the design, and also maybe consulting engineers having virtual conferences, things like that just make their lives more effective. So it just requires that transportation going back and forth. And if you're working at a job site that might be a couple hours away potentially from their main office, it's now lost days just to have to go back and get these updated files or having these meetings in office rather than out at the job site. So it just increases the cost and time of the project to not have good connectivity.
So we've done some of these kinds of setups. What's one of the most challenging ones that you've been involved with?
Well, one of the things that we do inside of Stimulus is we offer fixed wireless connections. And the advantage of a fixed wireless connection is it's much higher speed connectivity than a 5G connection, or satellite, and it's much more stable of a connection. And so we can position a radio on the job site trailer and then connect it back to one of our tower locations. And that becomes a much more effective communication. There's no speed or there's no data cap limits on that connection, and you can operate just as you were in your main office. One of the most challenging ones, there's a lot, and sometimes the issue is, sometimes the construction of the building affects the connectivity itself. So, we've often had to move connection locations because the building gets too tall and blocks signal, or maybe the job site trailer moves around multiple times, like I've mentioned, on the job site as the construction progresses. So I think some of the more challenging ones have even been inside of Las Vegas, because there's just a lot of building structures, and we've had to place a pole in the middle of a yard and put our connection on that, run some cabling back to the job site trailer, and had to move that pole multiple times, depending on where construction was. And so it's always interesting. Each job site is a little bit different. But the good thing is that when done correctly and when set up right, it really increases the efficiency of the construction project. Some of the other interesting ones that we've done are in rural locations outside of Las Vegas, or in some of our other locations like mid-Missouri or California, that we've set up these temporary connections on like environmental mitigation projects where they're going out to this very rural area and doing environmental work. And those connections have been very interesting, because there's just no connectivity out in these very rural areas, and without the connection they wouldn't be able to monitor their IoT devices, those devices that are doing like soil monitoring and things. So some of these connections are really nice because they can develop a Wi-Fi network in the area and get sensor data back to the main office as they're monitoring things. So those are some of the interesting projects we've done over the years.
So are these as secure as any other connection? How does security come into play?
So from a security standpoint, our connections are encrypted. So from end to end, the data is encrypted over the air and as it transmits across our network. The nice thing about fixed wireless too is that we can run what are called VPLS connections, or a Metro Ethernet style connection, that we could even run like it acts like just an Ethernet cable that connects from the job site trailer back to the main office. Or you can run VPN connections over it. So security is not a problem on fixed wireless. Fully encrypted, you can run additional encryption technologies like VPLS or MPLS networks over it. So the way that we built our network allows for full encryption end to end.
Might there be a choice that a company might make that wasn't as secure as that?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes the question is if you do it yourself or try to do some of these connections yourself, it could be an issue if you don't know how to configure the equipment correctly. So it's really important that the wireless equipment is configured properly and set up properly so that you have all those additional capabilities, like I mentioned, VPNs or end-to-end encryption of the data.
Do you have any other examples where where it improved the operations of a job site by getting the correct internet access?
I go back to my initial example that I use that story. We ended up getting a solution. We convinced the telephone company to install an ISDN line, and those that are techie probably haven't heard of ISDN for a long time. So we had a dual bonded ISDN connection, which I think rated it at 256 kilobits per second. No, it was faster than that. But it was, in today's standards, it was very slow. But for them, getting even a connection that was faster than, dial-up, which is their only other option at that time, really improved their ability to electronically communicate with their office. I think any connection we do today improves the communication and connectivity to those locations. Some of the others, this isn't job site related, but rural related. I really like when we can connect like a school or a library or one of these locations that it has not had traditional connectivity in the past in these rural areas, and given them the ability to run as if they were urban locations. So a lot of the work that we've done as a company is providing access, fiber optic like access over our fixed wireless network in very rural areas. And so we're very proud of the work that we've done, and that's expanded beyond just job site trailers, but schools, connectivities, libraries, Air Force bases that are often remote, just providing that high-speed access in a lot of different locations. So it definitely changes the way that we work and improves the work dramatically.
Yeah, and we'll definitely be doing a lot more of that. Did do a past episode a little bit about that. So my final question is, since you worked at the MGM, did you get to see any lions when they were there?
Yeah, I mean, they used to have the lion exhibit at the MGM. It's since been moved to they have a small zoo here in Las Vegas. If people don't think about Las Vegas having a zoo, but there is a zoo park. But I think the coolest part of that, so I did two projects. One was the conference center there at the MGM, and the second one was the Rainforest Cafe. And it was really cool at the Rainforest Cafe is they built this, one of the world's largest aquariums, and watching them construct this acrylic aquarium that, spanned the whole restaurant. It was really cool. And then after the fact, I went back and, I've eaten there a few times. I think they've since moved. This was, 20, 30 years ago now. So they've moved the Rainforest Cafe since then. But seeing this really cool aquarium that I saw, being built from scratch, and then, and honestly, part of the construction too, it was really, really interesting. So, in our world in ones and zeros, we don't often see the results, physically the results of our work, but being part of construction is an interesting, side of things to actually see and be able to go touch, a project that you were a part of. So I still try to remember that when we're doing these projects, whether it's a fixed wireless project to bring connectivity to a job site. I mean, we're part of that construction crew and bringing that connectivity so that they can effectively work. So I often think about that, and we talk about that as a team of, how cool is it that we can be part of some of these really interesting projects.
Yes, and there's always interesting projects here in Las Vegas. All right. Well, thanks, Nathan. That was really interesting. Probably more than a lot of people know about how construction happens. You just don't really think about that aspect of it.
Yeah, thanks everybody for joining us today.